in person rather than in front of our computer screens. But nevertheless, welcome. We so appreciate you for joining us today as we celebrate each other and the 2020 recipients of the AMA Employee Funded Scholarship. As the Foundation's Executive Director, I want to again say thank you for all that you do to pay it forward to our physicians of tomorrow. And a special thank you to all of our AMA Foundation employee ambassadors who are here with us today. We truly could not do this without you. So a few quick housekeeping items that I ask you when you're not speaking to please mute yourself. But during the open Q&A session, please feel free to type your question in the chat. Use the hand raise function or raise your hand on the camera so we can best manage questions for our students. For those of you who may not know, the AMA Employee Funded Scholarship was established in 2017 after we held several focus groups over pizza with employees to better understand what they knew about the AMA Foundation. And trust me, that pizza was a great return on our investment because we learned a lot. One of the key pieces of information that we heard was the employees' desire to more personally get involved with the foundation and give back in a way that was personally meaningful to them. So we quickly got to work by creating the AMA Foundation Employee Ambassador Group and established the AMA Employee Funded Scholarship Fund with the goal of awarding one $10,000 scholarship annually to a medical student in an AMA office community. The response has been overwhelming, and each year the foundation has been able to not only award one, but two $10,000 scholarships in the name of AMA employees to deserving medical students like Ryan and Gina. Again, I want to thank each of you who have helped to make that possible and continue to do so. But enough about me. We all know the real reason why we're here, and that's to meet and hear from our 2020 Employee Funded Scholarship recipients. And now I want to introduce Denise Foy, who really doesn't need any formal introduction because we're all friends, but Denise is the Vice President of Health Solutions and one of our amazing employee ambassadors. Denise's ongoing support and leadership of the Scholarship Fund, Give from the Heart Week, October Volunteer Month, payroll deduction, and more has been really, really invaluable. And with that, I want to hand it over to our facilitator, Denise.
Thank you, Bob. Everyone today. It's really a pleasure to see so many folks. And I really appreciate you taking the time out today, especially Ryan and Gina, who we're going to hear a lot about today. You know, having served on the selection committee each year, I absolutely can assure you that the selection process is never easy, and because all of the candidates are really inspirational. And I highly encourage any of the folks on the line here to join us in making these tough and rewarding decisions. Anyone at the AMA can be a part of that process. With us today, we have Ryan and Gina, the 2020 recipients of the AMA Employee Funded Scholarship. Gina Jones is a medical student at the University of Illinois at Chicago College of Medicine. She's a first-generation Salvadoran American pursuing a career in dermatology. Her clinical and research interests include ethnic skin conditions, pigmentary disorders, and autoimmune dermatoses. She has been active in efforts to reduce health disparities in Chicago through collaborations with locally, federally funded, qualified health centers. Her efforts include quality improvement projects aimed at helping vulnerable populations receive appropriate dermatologic screening and care and improving health communication. Additionally, Gina dedicates her time to mentorship and peer education of underrepresented minority high school, undergraduate, and medical students. She's active in community service through the student-run health clinics that serve minority Chicago communities, and through advocacy roles in organizations such as the Medical Organization for Latino Advancement and Skin of Color Society. Welcome, Gina, and thank you for being with us. All right. And our next scholarship awardee, Ryan Chiu, also attends the University of Illinois at Chicago College of Medicine. He was born in a diverse working class community in Chicago to immigrant parents and developed a love for learning from a very young age. Ryan's pursuing, boy, let me get this 3 times out. Ryan is pursuing neurosurgery and breakthroughs in brain-computer interfaces and other neurological implants. He co-founded neurosurgeryimplants.com, a portal informing patients and providers of adverse interactions of aneurysm clips, spinal instrumentation, and other implants with metal detectors and other machines. Ryan's passionate about ensuring that medical breakthroughs are equitably accessible to all patients. He remains active in organized medicine through the AMA, having served as vice chair of the Illinois State Medical Society's Medical Students Section, and specialty organizations such as the Congress of Neurological Surgeons. Thanks to you, Ryan, for joining us today, and congratulations to both of you. So now that we've learned a little bit about Ryan and Gina, we're going to ask some questions. And first of all, can you tell us, well, I'm sorry, Barclay, did you want questions from the audience, or want to let them tell us about their backgrounds and let me ask the questions and then we'll open it up again? I think.
Yes, I think, yep. So we'll have some planned questions and then we'll open up to the employees in attendance.
Great. So Gina, we're going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and when you knew that medicine was your calling, and like what drew you to pursue medicine?
Yes, well, good afternoon. My name is Virginia Alvarado Jones. I go by Gina. And I'd first off like to start by thanking all of you for being in attendance today and for hosting this space for us. It's truly an honor to be with you today. So a bit about me. I was born in Illinois and raised mostly in Illinois and El Salvador, which is where my parents are from. And I knew that I wanted to be a doctor really through a tragedy that happened to my family. We were involved in a car accident caused by an intoxicated driver that unfortunately took the life of several of my family members, and my father was one of the casualties. My mother and I were in a very critical condition after this accident, and we had a very lengthy recovery. But it was through my recovery, seeing everything that my interdisciplinary team did for me to restore my functionality and restore my life to normalcy, that I knew that I wanted to do that for others moving forward. And that's when I knew that I wanted to be a physician and dedicate my life to improve the lives of others.
Great, thank you so much. And Ryan, how about you? What led you to medicine?
Yeah, so to echo what Gina said, I first wanted to start off by thanking the foundation, the employees, and of course the many donors who've made this scholarship possible. I don't think that we would be here without the generosity of both everybody in this call, all the employees at the foundation, the foundation's goal in advancing the goals of medical students all around the country, and from the donors who made this scholarship possible. So I wanted to say thank you right off the bat, and good afternoon. My name is Ryan Chiu. I'm a fourth-year medical student at UIC. I grew up, though, as the first person in my family to be able to go to college. And I grew up in a working class community in the south side of Chicago called Bridgeport. Go Sox. Lived about 3 blocks away from the stadium. And growing up, my parents were immigrants from China. They came here with very little in terms of formal education. And often I remember seeing them work very menial jobs to make ends meet, to live paycheck by paycheck, putting food on the table. Whether that means working in restaurants, washing dishes, or mopping floors, or doing other tasks, even while they were still learning English and going to community college and learning certificate programs that would advance their careers. So that's the kind of environment that I grew up in. And I think because of that modest background, I've always grown up having to seek out opportunities on my own. There was never really a time in my life that someone handed me opportunities on a silver platter. I've always had to seek out those opportunities for myself. And I remember growing up, even though my parents and my family didn't have much, they would always encourage me to read. And they would always take me to the library, always made me check out a book in the library. And I remember when I was in middle school, I checked out a book on anatomy, and I instantly fell in love. I felt a connection with medicine that I didn't feel with any other. So that's how I became interested in medicine. And when I was accepted into college, I was accepted into a 7-year accelerated bachelor's and MD program here at UIC, and eventually led to where I am today. So once again, thank you for the opportunity to share my story, and happy to answer any questions you all might have throughout the remainder of the session.
Great, thank you so much, Ryan. This next question is, what was it like for you when you found out you'd been awarded the AMA scholarship? Ryan, would you share your story with us?
Sure. So I still have a lot of family back in China, and I remember during early 2020 when I first found out that I was awarded the scholarship. COVID was much worse in China. It was sweeping that country, and it was starting to sweep the rest of the world as well. I remember actually when around the time I got the email saying that I won the scholarship, I actually found out that my grandfather had actually passed away. And it was when COVID was sweeping the country and a lot of people in China were dying from that infection. And also, I was planning my finances for my fourth year of medical school. And I think the stress of a lot of that, whether it was death in the family, whether or not there was hardships, whether or not it was finances going into my final year of medical school, it was really a time of high stress for me. And I remember when I got that email, I thought it would be another email from the financial aid office saying, how much financial aid I would get for the next year. But turned out to be a very happy email from you guys. And that's when I found out I got the $10,000 award from that foundation. And it really, really brightened my day in a time when I thought I was at my lowest point. So once again, I'm forever grateful to the foundation for making that possible. And I'm always looking forward in the future to give back and to pay it forward.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks so much. And Gina, how about you? What did it feel like when you found out you received the award?
Yeah, so I'll echo a lot of what Ryan said. It was during the height of the pandemic here in Chicago. It was a pretty devastating time. My husband and I had just recovered from COVID-19 ourselves. So it was, a very trying time. I had my niece who was staying with me, and I remember the day that I received the email, I actually had to read it multiple times because I was just so overwhelmed, and I just read it like at least 5 times before I actually processed what it said. And I started crying tears of joy. And my niece rushed over and said, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And she's someone who really looks up to me. I'm the first person to go to college and medical school in my family as well. And her dreams to become a doctor. So she said, "What's going on?" And I showed her the screen of the computer, and she hugged me and she said she was so proud of me. We joined hands and we were cheering. So it was really just a wonderful moment. I then reached out to my mother and then my husband and my family, and everyone was just so thankful and grateful to the foundation for the generous donations and for the opportunity to receive such a blessing.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, so you guys, these are fantastic stories, and I'm getting a little, I have my, it's kind of emotional, and we're really, really happy that, we're able to do this and to help you like this. When we think about this last year, and you told us a little bit about, when you received it, tell us a little bit, we're going to start with Brian first, tell us a little bit about like the impact that award made on you. Like, were you able to do things that you wouldn't have normally been able to do, or how did it impact you? So why don't we start with Ryan?
Yeah, so actually, medical debt is not the only debt I've had in my life. I've had to take out loans for college, had to pay my way through that. So I've always had to find ways to work, even when I was in school, to make ends meet and to pay off my loans and my tuition and the student fees that might exist year to year. And I think getting that scholarship at a time when I was worrying about how I would pay off my loans really allowed me to focus on the things that really matter in my core mission of being a physician, caring for my patients, and being their advocate in more ways than one. And I think that as a result of that scholarship, I was able to focus on things that I have been doing to advance the quality of life for patients, even outside of the OR, outside of the clinic. For example, I was very involved in technological development in neurosurgery, and I was able to, with the support of my team in the Department of Neurosurgery here at UIC, develop some provisional patents for devices as well as software to help neurosurgical patients here at UIC. I was also involved heavily in research, studying clinical outcomes and recognizing health disparities that exist in our practice every day. I was also involved in advocacy for my patients through health policy and public health. I am fortunate enough to now be the chair of the Illinois State Medical Society's medical student section, and I was able to work with medical students around the state to make sure that we passed policies and we lobbied for policies that would improve the lives of our patients on the ground and the situations that many people as a result of this pandemic are facing. And so that's just an inkling of what I've been able to do as a result of the focus on these areas that the scholarship has allowed me to do.
I believe Denise is muted, but I believe she passed it to Gina, if I can read lips.
So for me, the scholarship has truly been such a huge blessing. I'm applying to dermatology for residency, and it's very common in our field that students will take a year off between their third and their fourth year of medical school to conduct research in dermatology, just to improve their application and, show the commitment to the field, which is something that I did. This is a very, very expensive venture to take a year off. Most positions are not funded, so you really have to self-fund yourself. Something that Ryan said was he always had to find ways to fund his tuition and fees. So this is really what I had to do during my research year. It was a very burdensome year for us, and my husband is a resident, so we were trying to make ends meet, on his salary, but it was a very difficult time. So knowing that I was awarded this substantial and generous scholarship really allowed me to not worry so much about that extended year in my medical education, going from 4 years to 5 years, and the burden of debt. I've always had to take out loans for all of my studies as well. So that's something that really weighs heavy on my shoulders. And looking at my financials going into my final year, I knew that this scholarship was just such a tremendous help to that debt that I have acquired over the many years of my studies. And it really allowed me to focus on the things that I'm passionate about. I'm very passionate about increasing diversity in dermatology. Dermatology is one of the least diverse fields in medicine, second to orthopedic surgery. So I've really devoted my efforts on working with organizations such as the Skin of Color Society and Visual DX to improve diversity in dermatology, and also focusing on my research efforts with how to improve medical education in skin of color and how we can help decrease healthcare disparities in patients with skin of color. I've also focused on my mentorship of medical students, and really helping them find their way and their path in medicine. So overall, it really has just allowed me the peace of mind to continue on the path that I'm so passionate about. And I'm just so grateful for the generous donations and for the generous scholarship.
Great, great. I've got a couple more questions before we open it up to the group. So thinking about this, and Gina, you've touched on it a bit. The AMA, has spent the last 2 years really bringing, we started the Center for Health Equity and really bringing that, to our internal work as well as our external work. And we know that for both of you, health equity, especially with underserved populations, is clearly important to you. So to help us understand how that works out there in action, can you tell us a little bit more, Gina, about what you do, and then we'll go to Ryan in this particular area with health equity and underserved populations? What are some of the kind of things you've been involved with?
Yes, so health disparities and health equity are truly core to who I am as an individual. I grew up in very underserved regions in Illinois, so I've witnessed this firsthand, and I've seen my family go through the devastating effects of healthcare disparities. So made it my mission in life to make sure that I'm always helping eradicate those. I do this through different avenues. I mentorship of medical students. I mentor medical students through the Medical Organization for Latino Advancement and their Education and Research Committee. I work with the College of Medicine Urban Health Program, whose goal is to recruit, retain, and graduate underrepresented medical students so that they can serve their communities. The focus is really giving back to pipeline programs so that students will pay it forward in their careers as physicians. Other avenues that I work towards decreasing healthcare disparities is through my research. I've really highlighted just gaps in medical education as they pertain to patients with skin of color, and how we can improve these processes so that patients are receiving equitable care, and so that all dermatologic conditions are displayed in equitable amounts within all skin tones. So that's something that I'm very passionate about in my advocacy work. I've partnered with Visual DX. I co-founded their student advisory board just in 2020, and we're working on a project that's called Project Impact. And IMPACT stands for Improving Medicine's Power to Address Care and Treatment. So we're using technology to address these educational gaps to decrease healthcare disparities. And then again, through my extracurricular work that I do with free student run clinics, making sure that we're providing that primary care to those who may be worried about going to a hospital due to their immigration status. So just through all of those avenues, I just try to make sure that I'm doing my part and giving back to the community.
Great, thank you so much. And Ryan?
To echo what Gina said, I also see this as an opportunity to give back to the type of communities that I grew up in and to really pay it forward for future generations of physicians and patients. I remember when my parents fled China to flee famine, starvation, and persecution, and they sought refuge in the United States. They were always on survival mode. And I don't think that you can really actualize and achieve your true potential as a person if you're always focused on survival. We talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, how you have to make sure you have food, water, and shelter before you think about the other things. And I always grew up seeing people in my community, as well as my parents, live on that survival mode and how that really diminishes people's potential. And I see it as giving back to my community. And because I think healthcare is a way we can make sure that no children who grew up in this country and no individuals who are in the United States have to be on survival mode. I want to see all Americans, my patients, do well and to be able to actualize their own potential without having to worry about the necessities. And so I really want to make sure that healthcare is afforded in a high quality manner to all Americans, regardless of your racial, ethnic background, gender, or socioeconomic background. I want to make sure that the healthcare that's provided is equitable. And there are three ways I am doing that right now, and I think that I will continue to do that in the future. I think one of them is advocacy. I think the best physicians, the best surgeons are not just those who can operate and to see patients in clinic, but rather those who move the needle forward in terms of advocating for their patients outside the walls of the clinic and the hospital. And that means participating in advocacy, whether it's my work through the AMA or the State Medical Society, or pushing for reforms or advocating on the ground for patients, but also making sure that our advocacy is backed up in evidence-based policy. And part of that involves my research on disparities and clinical outcomes in neurosurgery and in medicine as a whole. So I really want to make sure our policies are based on evidence. And thirdly, I think is the part that defines my work is technology. We've seen throughout this pandemic that we've expanded telehealth and other technologies, but that this technology hasn't been afforded equitably across different populations, particularly those who are underserved. And so I don't think technology itself is the problem. I think it's how we invest that technology in the world and in our communities. And we want to make sure, and I want to make my goal to be making sure that technology bridges healthcare disparities rather than exacerbate them. And that means investing those technologies in underprivileged communities, making sure that telehealth and broadband internet access are accessible to underprivileged areas, and to make sure that we use telehealth and telesurgery and virtual surgery in the future, for example, to really benefit the people who need it most and who don't presently have access to care.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now I think this is probably a question I think everybody out there has is, tell us a little bit about, how COVID-19 pandemic has impacted your experience in medical school, your interviews, or your plans. So we'll start with you, Ryan.
Yeah, so I think that this virtual process has given us a lot of opportunity to learn. I've just finished my, and I'm sure Gina as well, I think we both are either at the end of the trail or finished the trail of interviews that we were on for our respective residency programs. And I think as a result of this whole virtual pandemic interview season, that's unlike any others. Normally we would be on the ground visiting these programs in person. But I think we've noticed now that this virtual format saves a lot of cost for people, especially future physicians who come from backgrounds like Gina's and mine, who don't necessarily always have the resources to travel around the country and go to 100 different programs to visit. And I think that this pandemic and the virtual setting that has resulted from that gives us an opportunity to recognize those barriers that exist among future physicians and medical students now going through this application process, and to really bridge those disparities going forward. So I really see this season not only as a challenge, but also as a silver lining and an opportunity to really solve a lot of what's keeping underprivileged medical students from being able to care for patients and to go to a lot of the same programs that other physicians are able to go to.
Thanks. Gina, how about you?
Yes, really just echoing what Ryan said. I think that especially with virtual, with away rotations. Generally, this is a process that is very expensive, and students who come from underprivileged backgrounds, such as Ryan and my own, we're not really able to afford those. Paying rent in 2 cities, paying our food, our travel for that. So the opportunity to do a virtual away rotation in lieu of an in-person rotation saved so much just financial burden. Also, the travel associated with interviews. I'm applying to dermatology, which means I have to interview for internal medicine preliminary year and dermatology. So I'm applying to 2 separate programs for my career goals, which means I would have to travel for all of those interviews. So it's just been a huge weight off of our shoulders, not having to bear that financial burden. I also am very grateful to the programs and their creativity. They have really hosted so many spaces for us to ask questions, to learn more about their programs, and to try to understand if they're the right fit for our career goals. And I do think that this is a silver lining within the interview process, is allowing students who typically may not have been able to, due to finances, travel to all of these places, get to experience what their training could potentially be like at that program. So I think that absolutely is the silver lining. In terms of medical education, it was an adjustment having to complete some rotations virtually, but I'm very grateful for my school and all the precautions that they took to keep their students safe. When we returned to in-person rotations, I actually did my medicine sub-internship with Ryan. We were both together working at the same hospital at the same time. So it was nice to go back to the clinic and to help be part of the medical team again. Of course, doing so safely and using all those precautions that they had in place for us. So overall, I'm just very grateful for my health, the health of my family and loved ones, and just grateful for the opportunity to meet other programs on the residency trail and to pursue my dreams.
Great. Thank you, Gina. Ryan and Gina, thank you so much for like sharing with us and being personal, and letting us get to know you. There's so many people on the call that, you know, have given to this scholarship, and it really means a lot to us to meet you, to see you, to hear about your life. And so now we're going to open it up to the staff that's online. We have about 70 some people on the line now. And I'll remind everyone, if you want to ask a question, put it in the chat. I think that Parker's going to help me a little bit, and we'll raise our hands, and we'll let people ask their questions. Okay, so let's see here. So a lot of people are saying thank you. Best of luck to both of you. So do we have some questions out there? Any hands raised? Let's see here.
Yep, so we have Gary Libretti raised his hand. So Gary, go ahead and ask your question.
Hey there. Yeah, I started typing in the chat box and then I figured I'd raise my hand and ask. Ryan and Gina, thank you so much for sharing. It's been fascinating listening to you both. I work as the wellness administrator for the AMA, so do a lot of work to try to make sure we have a work-life balance, provide mindfulness and kind of self-care services. So I was hoping you could share a little bit of detail about what you do to balance out your endeavors in work and life and school and yeah.
Yeah, I can start that off. So wellness is so important to me. I found that when I started medical school, I was not balancing that very well. I was not thriving. I was mostly just consuming myself in my studies, and I didn't have a great balance. So after my third year of medical school, during my third year of medical school, I made it a priority that no matter what rotation I was on, that no matter how much I had to study, that I was going to prioritize my well-being so that I could be the best advocate and the best medical student for my patients. That for me incorporated working out at least 3 to 4 times a week. It caused me to start waking up around 4 o'clock in the morning so that I could get my workouts in. But it really helped structure my day, doing my workout and then going about my work. And then at the end of the day, really practicing mindfulness meditation. I really enjoy the app Insight Timer, and I make sure that I use grounding techniques before I'm going to bed and just being grateful and thankful for, the stresses of the day, but also the the way of overcoming those stresses. So I find that that's the best way of balancing myself. It's, again, a balancing act. I've had to make sure that during the pandemic, while we were working from home, that I was still practicing those self-care techniques that I use.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the excellent question. I would say that there are three main things that I do to make sure that I'm well. I know that medicine can be a stressful career for everybody involved, especially during this pandemic. So it's always important for us to stay well in all aspects of wellness. I think there are three main things. I think, first of all, really making it a point to take breaks and to schedule breaks throughout the day. We all need a breather. None of us can work 24/7, not take a breather, and just continue doing what we're doing. I think in order for us to stay well, we need to remind ourselves to take a breather once in a while. And what I do, even when I'm keeping productive, I use this timer called the Pomodoro technique, which basically gives you 25-minute working periods where you just work. And then after that, it schedules like a 5-minute break. And you repeat that throughout the day, interspersed with hour-long breaks throughout the day. So making sure you take time to walk outside, take a breather, really do something and take a break from what you're doing. I think that's a key component of wellness. I also think it's good to make time for your hobbies as well. I used to be a competitive chess player, actually. And for all of you who haven't watched the Queen's Gambit on Netflix, I highly recommend that series. But I used to play chess competitively, and recently I've started playing online. There's plenty of websites out there. So really finding hobbies and getting back to hobbies you used to enjoy is also another component. And thirdly, I want to say that it's always important for us to mentally remember our mission for doing what we do, whether it's regardless of our jobs. So for me, I just remember why I got into medicine in the first place. I wanted to help people, and I wanted to make sure that at the end of each day, I wanted to make sure that I made a positive difference in somebody's life. And I think remembering that and your goals for the day and why you went into your profession to begin with, instead of getting bogged down and losing the forest for the trees. I think that's also a key component, is the mindset of that going forward. And I think that as a result of those three things, I've been able to keep relatively well, even in the midst of a global pandemic.
That's fantastic. Emily, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Denise. Hi, Ryan and Gina. It's Emily at the foundation. And so in my role as the program manager with the foundation, I get to coordinate the scholarship application and review process. I got to send those emails to you guys. You kind of stole my thunder, Ryan. I was going to ask what you guys actually do, like, for fun and when you sleep, because you both are so impressive and amazing. But also just want, and please let me know if there's anything else, but just wanted to say also that it's the best part of my job, getting to meet and interact with you guys and getting to read your applications. I say it all the time, but it's true. I always feel lazy and unaccomplished in comparison to what you all do. But yeah, is there any, in addition to Netflix and obviously these mindfulness things, is there anything else that you all have been doing, especially in these times, to kind of keep yourself grounded and having fun outside of medicine and all of your other pursuits?
Yeah, so I can start that off. So nice to meet you, Emily. Thank you so much. Your emails have brought so much joy. So I am very thrilled to meet you today, and I'm sure Ryan is as well. So I would say that for fun, so my fun is really photography. I haven't really been able to do that much in the winter, but during the summer, I did walk out with my husband. We would visit pretty nice drawings that they had in Chicago in different neighborhoods. We have very diverse neighborhoods, and I would take pictures of those. I'm trying to teach myself portrait photography over the next couple of months, just so that I can be a tool for my friends who have baby showers coming up or who just want like a professional headshot. So that's on my to-do list for the next couple of months. Other things that I really enjoy are spending time with my husband. Prior to the winter in Chicago, we started doing a lot of outdoor activities, renting the divvy bikes and riding them on the lakefront, which is not too far from my house in this my apartment in the South Loop. I'm just walking around the neighborhood. I mentioned that my husband's also in healthcare. He's a resident physician, so he has very stressful days. So we always like to make sure that we unwind together and that we're doing things that make us, happy and whole. And with that, my husband also just purchased me an Instant Pot. I like to cook and try new recipes. Pescatarian, so I'm always trying new recipes. So he just purchased an Instant Pot for me. So I'm going to try some of those Pinterest recipes also now that I've wound down on my interview season.
Yeah, chicken soup is great in the Instant Pot. Okay. Right.
Yeah. So for me, prior to the pandemic, I always was someone who loved to travel and to experience different settings. Obviously, that's not really possible with the current pandemic to fly to a bunch of places. But I think in substituting for that, getting outside and going to the park nearby and taking a walk and to make sure that exercise is a part of your routine is really something that I enjoy now. I would say prior to the pandemic, I really, really undervalued exercise personally. And I think I underestimated how much exercise we used to get, even when we're not actively exercising out before the pandemic when we were walking around our hospitals and our offices. Now we don't really have that. And, like many people, I've put on my good share of pandemic weight, but I found that exercising, getting a bike at home, one of those, getting a treadmill at home, getting a self-powered bike at home really helped me. And really exercise is really undervalued, I think, in this current time. It releases a lot of endorphins, uplifts the mood, makes you really happy. And also spending time with friends, like Gina said. We all, as humans, crave social interaction. And if we can't have that in person, at least make time to FaceTime or video chat your friends. And I make it a point to touch base with my friends and family virtually every once in a while to make sure that we still have that connection with other people that we had before, even if it has to be in a virtual format. And another thing is music. I personally am a huge fan of country music, and I think music is part of what makes us well as people. So sign up for that subscription to Spotify or Apple Music. Make sure to listen to your music, and really all of those things, doing your hobbies that you used to love, all of that makes you sane. And that's something that I've definitely been doing through the pandemic.
Thank you guys. You both are such superstars.
Yeah, you definitely are. So I want to, thank everybody for the questions and all the little hearts and thumbs up and smiles in the chat. I want to make sure that before we end it, because Barclay's going to have some things to say, I'm going to have a few things to say, is that if there's any final thoughts you want to leave us with, Gina and Ryan, I'll call on you, Gina, first. Any final thoughts you want to share with us?
Yes, I just truly, again, want to thank the AMA Foundation, the employees, the generous donations for making this scholarship possible. I can wholeheartedly attest to the impact that scholarships of this magnitude have on students such as Ryan and myself, who fully fund our education through government and federal loans. This scholarship has allowed me to focus on the things that I'm passionate about and not worry about the financial burden that I have. It has allowed me to give back and to pay it forward by training the next generation of underrepresented students, which is I'm really passionate about. So I just thank you so much for making this possible from the bottom of my heart. I am just so grateful, and I can't thank you enough.
Great. Ryan?
I also just wanted to thank, really, really from the bottom of my heart, the donors who made this possible, the employees, the foundation, all of you here today, as well as the foundation as a whole, and the work that the AMA does every single day to promote the welfare of medical students around the country. I don't think any of this would be possible, and we wouldn't be here without your gracious support. So I really, really thank all of you guys. You guys have played such an instrumental part to make sure that this son of immigrants with a funny last name, who was a first-generation college kid, can now be on his way to become a future neurosurgeon and to help people in need all across the country, wherever I end up. So I really, really thank everybody for that. Always looking to pay back and to pay it forward. And thank you guys, really from the bottom of my heart for putting this event together, as well as for the ever going support that you guys lend to the foundation every single day. Thank you.
You're welcome. This was really great. Before I turn it over to Barclay, I just wanted to, again, thank both of you for joining us today. I want to thank everyone who's on the line. I think I can't imagine that anyone hasn't been, touched and inspired by your stories. And, this is why we do what we do, and we're so happy to be able to support this. I know many of you see me regularly drumming up and asking for support for this. And I hope that everyone on the line today has really seen what your contributions have. You've made a difference, AMA staff. You really have. And if you could share this message and how much it means to us, this is very personal to my heart to be able to support this and to support the foundation. You could share it with your other friends at AMA and get them to give from the heart this week. That would really be amazing. Again, I'm really touched and inspired by both of you, and I wish you the very, very best of luck. And I know you're going to be fantastic, fantastic physicians. So with that, Barbara, I'm going to turn it over to you to close this.
Yeah, and Denise, I couldn't agree with you more. Just ditto to everything that you said. And I think that everyone on the call today will agree that the future of medicine is bright and the future of medical leadership is bright, as we've heard today from Gina and Ryan. So thanks again for everyone for joining us today. Thanks for your support. Thank you, Denise, for facilitating, and thank you to our AMA ambassadors for their support in making this possible. And for, again, your time to meet and greet our AMA employee-funded scholars. I also want to just say that if you've not already done so, it's not too late to make a tax-deductible donation to the foundation. I encourage you to visit the foundation website at amafoundation.org/heartweek so that we can take full advantage of the $5,000 matching donor challenge. And if there were a drum roll app that I could insert here, I'm proud to say that we have raised more than $4,200. We're almost at $4,300. And so an extra special shout out to Health Solutions, who are quickly closing in on being the first AMA business unit to fully underwrite their own AMA employee funded scholarship. That is amazing. Finally, if you're interested in getting more involved with the foundation and supporting efforts such as this and selecting the 2021 scholarship recipients, by the way, that's not an easy job, you can contact Parker and learn more about how to become an AMA Foundation ambassador and serving on the selection committee. And with that, I want to again thank Gina and Ryan for taking time out of your busy schedules to share with us today your stories, your testimony. It is truly a blessing to give back and pay it forward, and you've clearly demonstrated that by sharing the impact of this scholarship on your respective lives. So again, thanks to everyone. Have a great rest of your day and rest of your week. Until we meet again, take good care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Barclay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Ryan. Bye, Gina. Thank you.
Great seeing everybody. Bye.